Hello everybody, welcome to my session. My name is Chansung Park and I am one of the administrators at TensorFlow Korea community. Today I'm here to share my own experience on how I have improved the quality of the community by creating something as shown in title, Automated Newsletter Service. This newsletter service is an open source project and was built specifically for TensorFlow Korea community. But you'll see some general concepts and the way how to apply it for your own community. So here are some of the topics that I want to cover today. First, I want to give a little bit of background about what TensorFlow Korea community is in order to give you a sense of what it is and why the newsletter service might be a good thing. Second, I'll share some of my experiences, mostly bad experiences while interacting with the community over the past 1 year. By doing so, you will understand what exactly motivated me to create such service. Third, I'm going through some of the implementation details. This is not about giving you how to write the actual code, but to give you a sense what are the components needed to form such service and what are the pipelines looks like to run the service. The fourth one is a part of the third topic. The newsletter service could be run as a standalone application locally, but it would be nice to send out newsletters automatically. You'll see how we can leverage GitHub Action for automated weekly newsletter service. And last but not least, I'll give you a brief talk about the current status of the service and the future plan that I'm working on these days to improve the service any further. So let's begin. TensorFlow Korea is a community originated for sharing information and experiences about TensorFlow framework. TensorFlow is an open source project and is for machine learning and deep learning project. And it was created by Google, by the way. It's based on Facebook group, and it has started out its own journey in 2016. I mean, TensorFlow Korea community, not the TensorFlow framework. That was just a year after the born of TensorFlow framework. And we have reached about 50,000 members about a month ago. It was a very important milestone for our community. So the newsletter service that I will explain was designed for self-celebrating and returning back event for our community members. Despite of its original purpose, there is a variety of topics that we discuss these days in our community. As you know, AI itself is not a big deal, but when it's combined with different technologies, it becomes a huge deal. Because of that, we have a very large user base from lots of different backgrounds. Interesting part is, our members are posting not only simple Q&As, but also complex topics and some useful information, delivered by very rich text and images. That's quite different aspect from other communities, I think. Also, we are holding lots of great events, online and offline. During the COVID-19 pandemic, we have held awesome untagged online seminars with the lead of Google AI advocate, Professor Cho Kyung-hyun from New York University, and NVIDIA engineer from Silicon Valley. Let me show you some of the showcases that we frequently share through this community. Most of all, as you can see, many posts are very rich and well organized. On the left-hand side, the screenshot shows that we share some news that's happening globally and encourage members to join the discussion via comments. Also, since members use lots of different tools to realize AI for their own purpose, we want to share tips and useful information about the tools. This is not just for TensorFlow framework, but it's for everything. You can frequently find out information related to PyTorch, JAX, and other frameworks, and whatever you're looking for. And this kind of post sometimes includes the actual code snippets. I think is super useful. The third example is a bit crazy, but yes, some of our members are researchers and they are happy to share paper reviews and their own thoughts about it. We actually have a group of people recording and sharing their paper reviews every week. Also, ethical issue is an important part in AI. As shown for the example, our members want to share ethical topics and eager to listen to what other people think about the topics. AI is a rapidly evolving area, so it's also a good thing to have some people who share recent trends and their limitations. Now, these are just a tiny bit of what's happening in TensorFlow Korea community. But by looking at these examples, you could get some sense that we have very rich information floating around. So this was the first thing that developed my intuition to create the newsletter service, because I didn't want to lose all the information after all. As you know, it's not easy to hold past information in Facebook though. Here, let's look at some numbers this time. By inspecting some numbers, this idea could be developed much more concrete and strong. On the top left corner, the graph shows constantly increasing number of members, meaning we are possibly having more and more people to share rich information. Also, we have a constant number of active members over the last year. This clearly shows many of our members are happy about the community. On the right-hand side, you can see there are two graphs showing the number of posts for the past 60 days and 7 days respectively. As you can see, we have at least 150 posts every week. You might think it's a small number when you think about the number of members, 50,000. However, this is a huge number when you think about how well the information is refined as seen from the showcase. As you can see, TensorFlow Korea is a pretty good place by looking at some of the statistical numbers and actual showcase. However, it turns out Facebook group is not a great place to archive and search past the information. I wouldn't even have come up with the idea to create a newsletter service if not so. Who wants to share nicely formatted information if it'll be dead information like after a month or so? Here are some of the drawbacks that I want to point out, which inspired me a lot. These are drawbacks specifically curated for Facebook group, but this might not be true for your community. But if you think your community coincidentally has similar issues, you could consider creating a similar service for your own community. At the end, I'll let you know how to bring this open source project into your own community. So Facebook recommends what to read for each Facebook user, and Facebook keeps recommending what you should read based on your interest. It's hard to keep following topics that you have a little interest. This could be a useful feature if you want to read what you're up to only. However, in the case that you want to expand your interest to other areas, that might be a bad feature. According to the nature of our community, this feature seems very inappropriate. Like I said before, our members have many different backgrounds, so they are kind of new to AI field. Also, consider the numbers that we have just discussed in the previous slide. It's almost impossible to consume more than 150 posts every week. Even with top few posts like 20, just ask yourself that you could really digest those information in a week? Probably not. Especially when information is not simple, but very rich. Fixing these drawbacks could let TensorFlow Korea community to become much better place. Also, all the administrators at TensorFlow Korea always keep paying attention to what we could give back to our community members. So with this background in mind, I have created a newsletter service to solve some of those problems. Here is a quick overview of it. It's not a complicated service, nor it requires a lot of Python coding skills like it only took about 3 weeks to launch. Rather, it was just designed to deliver rich information to as many people as possible. After receiving newsletters, it is up to receivers to archive if they want by using a simple functions in their mailbox, like tagging function. Out of 150 weekly posts, up to 20 posts gets ranked by a simple summation formula. The number of reactions, the number of shares, and the number of comments. It is possible to give weights for each parameter, so that's a customizable point. For TensorFlow Korea, they are all set to 1 for now as an experimental purpose. Also, one of the great features about this service is the ability to issue a weekly newsletter without a human being involved. That means it's fully automated and it's done through GitHub Action. I'll give a talk about this topic just in shortly. I have included all the details about this project in README. I think the documentation has done nicely. In the document, you can read the CLI spec for this program, and I believe CLI is the best way to understand any project features in a high-level view. So here's a sneak peek at it. As you can see, there are some options to make application behave in different ways. As we can set the range of dates when the to-be-scrapped posts are posted by using since and until flags. Also, we could limit the number of posts to scrap. Again, the weights for each different parameters for the number of reactions, number of shares, number of comments are all configurable as well. On the right hand side, the screenshot shows a sample example usage, so please check it out if you're interested. That was a pretty high level features of what the application does. Let's dive into a bit more details about the pipeline, how the whole system actually works in a nutshell. The first thing it tries to do is to read configurations from external files. Configurations are split into 2 categories, sensitive and non-sensitive. There are a number of sensitive information, including Facebook access token, SMTP related information, etc. Non-sensitive information is all about what you can customize, like the number of top posts to be included, how many words to include for each post, and more. Based on the configuration, it tries to scrap Facebook posts in the group. The returning values from Facebook server are expressed in JSON format, so we need to parse them into Python objects. The next step is to inject parse data into email template, which consists of HTML and CSS. And injection is done through Jinja 2 library. The next step is to send out the formed email template to the subscribers. At this point, the main goal will be achieved nicely. But as you can see, there are 2 additional steps: refreshing Facebook token and write configurations. Refreshing Facebook tokens are something inconvenient, but necessary for some reasons. I'll talk a bit more about that shortly. The write configuration is to update the Facebook token with the refreshed one into an external file to make sure the token wouldn't be expired in the next time. Because the token persists for a certain range of time, so in order to keep everything works fine after a week later, a new token that will be still alive should be written down to the configuration file. So this slide shows the structure of the project. Let me go through one by one real quick. There are two directories, lib and static. I put every internal logics into lib directory. This includes data object model, parsing logics, creating email templates, sending emails, and so on. On the other hand, I put something without a logic into static folder. It's more like constant value stores in one place. HTML templates are stored in here too. Other than that, there are just two more interesting files, .m.gpg and config.cfg, which are responsible for sensitive and non-sensitive information respectively. Just for experimental purpose and self-learning purpose, I have chosen .m-python and standard config pasa package for each file to insert and extract information from them. The remaining files are pretty much self-explanatory, so I don't think I need to give any further explanations about them. So let's talk about configuration now. Like I said, there are two separate configuration files. In a development phase, configurations are something that should be changed very often time, and is the central place where other users can touch to pour the project into their own situations. So I have found that keeping the two very different information separately is a good practice. I don't want to make any difference whenever possible for like application ID, application secret, Facebook access token, which should remain as the same all the time. Let's think about that. I don't separate those. Even though I'm not going to change information that should remain as the same, I should save it and sync with the remote repository whenever I modify other configurable information. Furthermore, sensitive information is designed to be encrypted via GPG, which stands for GNU Privacy Guard. It's sort of an encryption algorithm. After encryption is done, all the information stays as the same except for the Facebook access token. And passphrase is managed in GitHub Secret, by the way, where you can put secret values and reference back in GitHub Action so that you can decrypt that env.jpg file with the passphrase without letting anyone know about it. On the other hand, config.cfg file contains all the customizable information. Just for your information, top K means the number of posts to appear in a newsletter, which is set to 24 now. And most importantly, Facebook group ID is the ID of a group where you want to scrap post from. The name of keys are pretty much self-explanatory, so please read it if you are interested in. But let me move on to the next topic for now, which is Facebook access token. Facebook access token is something that you must acquire if you want to use Facebook Graph API. In a normal process, you can get the Facebook access token through three major steps, like you should create a Facebook app, you should request on certain features like group API for your app, and your app must be reviewed by Facebook team. It doesn't look very complicated process at all. But the problem is, during the COVID-19 pandemic, Facebook has made a decision to temporarily pause individual verification process, meaning you can't get the access token in a normal way. I was kind of shocked by the fact because I was like, how will I get post back from Facebook now? Is that even possible? But luckily, after playing around with the Facebook API and reading Facebook official documents, I found there's a workaround for this. It goes like this. First, you grab a temporary access token via Graph API Explorer, which is a playground for Graph API. Exchange the temporary access token with a long-lived one. Facebook provides an API for this. Temporary access token only lives up to less than a day or so, but the long-lived one lives up to more than a week. So whenever grabbing and parsing Facebook post with the current token will get refreshed for the next run for the one more week because this is a weekly newsletter service. The refreshed token will be exported into the .env and encrypted via GPG. This was why we needed 2 additional steps at the end of the whole pipeline. And this slide is for a snippet of knowledge about Facebook's Graph API. Graph API is nothing but a graph structure that you probably studied from algorithm class. Everything can be expressed with 3 concepts: node, edge, and field. Node is an entity, and the edge is a connection between nodes, and field is a piece of information dangling within a node. For instance, group is a node, and posts are nodes, and there are edges between a group and posts. And each post contains a number of fields like date, contents, and so on. It's somewhat a hard concept when you have never heard about before. Also, the version has been dramatically changed over time, and it already has reached the version 8.0. You might have read various news about digital privacy, so Facebook continuously addressed new policies, but the problem is that they don't really make any big announcement about it for their developers. But luckily, the only lucky part and hope is that there is a Graph API Explorer. It's a place that you can play with APIs, so please use it whenever possible. That's a tip for developers who want to deal with Facebook API. So after parsing configuration, what's going to happen? It's a kind of boring steps, but almost always you need a similar procedure when you try to scrape information through API or crawling. It's not just only for Facebook. Make HTTP request to Facebook server is a good practice to make this function asynchronously working because you don't want other functions to be blocked. And Facebook server will give you back data in response, which is in JSON format. Because the raw JSON data is not really accessible in Python, right? So it should be properly parsed into Python objects. There are multiple ways to achieve this goal, but I have found it's easier and much more readable if you make a class method for this. So class method is a central place which takes the incoming raw JSON data format file and it extracts all the information from the JSON and it creates it creates a instance of the Python object if the JSON data is valid. Based on parse data, it'll create a data model instance, like I said, so that all the information is much more accessible for the rest of the program logics. Okay. Based on parse data within data model, we can now inject them into HTML template. HTML CSS is easy, right? But when it gets too long, it's not easily manageable. Even it gets worse when you download a template from online because they contain some weird characters that only their system understands. Like Jinja 2, we can split HTML into several pieces of HTMLs. It's like managing and importing multiple sources of files in one project. Also, Jinja 2 is probably the most popular way to inject Python information into HTML. Very flexible and there's nothing much to learn. So, which means syntax is straightforward, so you could learn it just in a day. I have additionally used Markdown 2 package before information injection. Markdown 2 is a tool to convert an article written in Markdown format into HTML form. Because basically, Facebook's posts are written in Markdown format, it won't be rendered appropriately if we don't make Markdown syntax to be HTML compatible. For instance, one hashed character often means a heading in Markdown, but H1 tag is the counterpart in HTML. So hash character should be converted into H1 tag. Pre-mailer package is also necessary package if you consider email service, since every CSS style should be in line as attributes every HTML tags. That's a kind of normal thing in an email. Otherwise, almost every email client will not render things nicely, and something will probably be broken. I have not mentioned about the first step in the email templating pipeline much. It's all about your searching ability to find out the best template. But it's a real time consuming job. If you don't have enough skills in HTML and CSS and looking for template line, consider how much time is going to be wasted. For me, a week out of the whole 3 weeks for this project were wasted for only this process. It's very fortunate to have a free service like Google Groups. Google Groups is a central place to dispatch an email to all subscribers. So I just need to email the HTML template to Google Groups, then everyone in the group will get the same email. If you are planning to dispatch one email template to a lot of people out there and want to make sure they're getting the same email all the time, please use Google Groups. I think that's the best solution for this. So that is pretty much everything you should know about how to build a newsletter service. This slide is kind of side note to let you know what GitHub Action is and how we can make the job automatic. First of all, you can choose free or paid version for GitHub Action, but you are almost always be satisfied with the free version. I guarantee you. As you can see from the table, there are only differences about the size of storage and running minutes of GitHub Action. 2,000 minutes per month should be enough for most of you. You can also choose an operating system for your needs too. But just remember, other specs like CPU, RAM size, other hardware specs are all the same between the paid version and free version. One particular reason that I like about GitHub Action is I can easily overview how the process goes in a project, meaning GitHub Action illustrates the high-level workflow, and it's very important when you analyze an open source project. I would probably say this is the first place that I'll visit for any open source project if they use GitHub Action. However, one of the drawbacks is the difficulties during the GitHub Action testament. You gotta find out a way to test GitHub Action locally. Otherwise, you'll probably end up with something like 150 commits from this slide, as you can see. 100 out of 150 reflects the number of changes that I needed to experiment with the GitHub Action. Luckily, recently I have found there are a couple of ways that you can test in a local environment. One way is to pull GitHub Action event from their local machine and do something within your local machine based on the event. That is the recommended way to do, and you can find the information how to do it from the GitHub Action official document. The other way is to leverage Netto's Act project, which lets you test the whole GitHub Action environment locally. So please, for further information, check out the official document on Netos Act project homepage. This slide shows the definition of the GitHub Action workflow for this project. Like I said, just by reading each line, you'll understand the high-level overview about how this project works. For instance, let's look at the left-hand side. GitHub Action is scheduled to be run every Friday at 3 a.m., which is 12 p.m. in South Korea. It's just a simple cron job. If you're familiar with cron job from the Linux operating system, it's super easy. Let me go through one red line by one on the right-hand side. In order to pull encrypted information from .im.gpg, it should be decrypted first, right? And some environment variables are set to be used as arguments of the main program. That's the second red line. And program gets run and the email should be successfully sent by the end of this process. And the access token should be refreshed by now with a new one for the next one more week. The refreshed token gets written down to the .env, and .env will be encrypted again via GPG. Since .env GPG is updated, it should be pushed to the master branch. So the updated information will persist for the next one more week. It's very straightforward and you'll get the sense how the program really works. We have explored how program works, but you gotta consider the privacy issue before working on the actual project. If your app is going to violate some privacy issues, then your application will be useless after spending a whole month to build one. This is all about ownership of each post, and it's like a question, can they be exposured without any permission or something? Fortunately, everything publicly posted can be shared without any permission in Facebook. That is the policy. This is not a great thing to know about as an individual Facebook user, but it may be nice to know as an app developer. TensorFlow Korea is a public group and everything in it is also public. So there were no problems at all to launch this newsletter service. I have found the supported documents through Facebook's help page, and also I have found some attorneys from the US have confirmed it. So please check the privacy issue before diving into the implementation, unless your group is based on Facebook. I'll skip over this slide a bit, but it shows how to port this project for your own community. It looks like there are too many things to configure. But actually, the only things that should be modified are information about your Facebook group. You cannot avoid from this, no matter what you are going to build for Facebook. It's a total necessary step. Even though you're going to build some other application for Facebook other than this newsletter service, like Facebook group ID, Facebook app ID, application secret. Also, you should include SMTP related information to send email to somebody. You don't really need to modify the source code at all though, if you don't want to make any change like email design or parsing logic. However, if your group is not based on Facebook, you should probably modify the parsing logic, requesting logics, and etc. Also, you gotta find out the way you can request post information to the server. Maybe there should be some APIs, or you could build your own web crawler. I would recommend to do it so though. So this project has been on service for the last 2 months or so. We have reached more than 500 subscribers in a month. And I think it's still not a small number, but not bad as the first attempt. I assume many members still not even aware of the existence of this service. I'm planning to improve newsletter service by applying deep learning in near future. This pipeline shows a simple ML ops, which is like DevOps for machine learning project. The core idea is to classify each post into categories like research, news, Q&As, tools, and etc. by leveraging NLP model like BERT. It is to avoid some posts with not much helpful information to be included in the newsletter. Because the current system grabs everything without knowing what categories they are. So for example, some events like sharing out newly published books are sometimes included as the top 1 rank. I think this kind of information is not really important to anyone if the event has been closed already. Leveraging NLP model is a trivial job. I can just make and deploy one useless model easily. However, since the characteristics of post on a community gets evolved and changed over time, the model should be retrained to avoid to be outdated. So DVC and CML are simple, but nice projects to tackle this problem. With DVC, which stands for Data Version Control, you can manage versions of data. But data here doesn't mean the training data only, but it also can support the management of versioning deep learning model. Actually, it can manage everything that is too large to be stored in GitHub repository. It manages the version of file which is actually stored in Google Drive or storage platform. You will also need to keep meta information in the GitHub repository. That's the only requirement to achieve this data version controlling stuff. CML is continuous machine learning. It's nothing but to report training results with a set of rich information like graph, as in a GitHub PR's comment. Based on this report, we can decide whether to merge the PR. So when a new data arrives, it will trigger GitHub action to train a model on the data. After training is done, the reports will be posted as a GitHub PR's comment via CML. While looking at it, we can decide to merge the PR, and when it's merged, it'll trigger another GitHub action to create new endpoint with the most recently pre-trained model. The reason to make everything work automatic is there is a chance that I'll quit the administrator position at TensorFlow Korea community at some point. When it happens, I want to hand this project over to someone else and let him or her to manage this project with a minimal effort. Or hopefully, no one should really look much in details or not a human being involved at all. If you found yourself being interested in this project, please find it by searching my ID deep-diver in GitHub. There are lots of contributional points, and I need help. And thank you. Thanks for listening. I hope this presentation has given you a valuable information. Thank you for listening a lot.